Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Sunday service of Now Creations. It's always a joy to remind you that the most important part of your life is you. It's that presence at the very center of your being. I hope today that you will allow it to come forward, allow it to guide your day, and bring you the happiness and joy that it is meant to do. Also, if you're able to join us later on tonight, be very happy to have you in What is Light Body from 7 to 8:30 this evening. A very, very powerful book. Let's begin. My dear friends, one of the great joys of our expanding spiritual awareness is the fact that this awareness is truly expanding. Just when you think there is no more to learn, a new idea, and an exciting idea at that, comes into our consciousness. And off we go into another expanded expression. This expanding awareness is even more impressive to the degree that we see this expansion in our weekly Sunday teachings. Again, just when you think you have heard it all, a new avenue of awareness dawns, it opens, and our excitement continues to grow. Such an expansion of awareness is the obvious intent of today's teaching. We will use last week's teaching of the development of soul skills to raise us to a new level of awareness. We will begin with a brief look at last week's teaching, move into an admission, and then conclude with our further spiritual expansion. Today's teaching is entitled Your Surrender Point. Let's begin with a comment from last week's teaching, but first with a brief introduction. Here's the introduction. Who among us does not like to be in control? Who among us does not like to be in charge? There is just that something within us that we desire, we yearn to have in charge. We know that it is that freedom at the very core of our being. And on the contrary, when something within us is not in charge, when we are out of control, we don't feel very good about that. We just have that innate desire to be in control. Please keep this in mind, this innate desire to be in control. Now, a brief look at last week's teaching. One of our key points in dealing effectively with others was the development of people skills. People skills. Let's now, in a sense, develop this notion of people skills in a very positive quality that is highly sought after and appreciated as a people skill. That prized quality, which is deeply valued in many people, is the skill, the people skill of leadership. Being a leader is a highly prized people skill. Whether it's parents within a family, a teacher in a classroom, a doctor in an emergency room, or a boss in a business, somebody has to be the leader. Somebody has to make those tough decisions of what needs to be done. And certainly leaders in every field are highly valued. Qualities of leadership are very easily listed, and sayings about leadership are easily quoted. And without a doubt, leadership is a highly praised people skill in today's society. That it was precisely at this point in the development of your spirituality When you were developing your spirituality, you began to ask a very insightful question. You asked, and especially you asked yourself, the following question. What are the values? What are the values that guide a good leader? That's a good question. What are the values that guide a good leader? It's a very penetrating question. And again, when you ask yourself that question, what are the qualities that guide a good leader? A lot of things come up. You clearly understand that a strong leader is not always a good leader. Time and time again, you have witnessed that absolute power corrupts absolutely, whether in a family, in a society, in religion, or certainly in politics. You saw, and perhaps you were tempted yourself to hold on to power, even if it meant to lie a little, cheat a little, or steal a little. You witness again and again what Plato called the noble lie that people in power will do anything to remain in power, thinking that they know better than anyone else. You saw people using their bully pulpits, whether it was a bully on the playground, a politician trying to sell their policies, or dare I say, even a religion threatening hell and damnation. You truly realize that absolute power corrupts absolutely. You clearly realize that the people skill of leadership had to be directed. The people skill of leadership had to be directed by a higher set of values that ennoble the leader. A higher set of values that ennoble the leader. And thus you clearly saw that people skills had to be elevated to soul skills. You realized that something more was needed for yourself to overcome those temptations to human corruption that plague so many leaders. Now, please listen carefully. You started your spiritual quest slowly because you also remembered that you still wanted to be in charge. Be honest. You still wanted to be in control. So you took a very practical approach to the development of your soul skills. This was the approach. You would follow your soul skills if they work better than just the old people skills. This made practical sense to you. If the soul skills work better, then why not do them? And of course, you would still be in charge of your decisions. So you began the study and the acquisition of soul skills. 3 of these soul skills, which showed a clear movement beyond people skills, are the following. You elevated the people skill of respecting others into the soul skill of oneness. You saw everyone as child of God. You elevated the people skill of caring for others into loving others and not to break that essential energetic unity when someone is a little obnoxious or hurtful to you. And you elevated the people skill of controlling others into the soul skill of serving others. This was a classical win-win situation for you because you were able to accomplish two wins. Again, listen closely. First, you enjoyed greater success in your life. Yes, it is true that soul skills work better than just people skills. Yes, it is true that soul skills elevate people into higher possibilities. And yes, it's true that your life became happier, kinder, wiser, smarter. Soul skills just worked better. You proved it to yourself. Ah, that was the problem. You proved it to yourself. The second win was clear to you. You were still in charge. You were still in control of you. This was great. You were in charge of a system of soul skills that really worked better for you, much better than you had anticipated. Terrific. Terrific. And you were still in charge until something else began to emerge. We normally call this something more to emerge, a spiritual ego. This is what happened. You did feel that you were in charge of your life situations, that there was a problem. You did feel that you were in charge of your life situations, that you did not feel that you were in charge of yourself. You could handle the problems of your life, that there was something missing within you. And as much as you try to elevate your inner self, you realize that you were not the final answer to yourself. You realize that you weren't the final answer to yourself. This realization that you were not the final answer to yourself made you, forced you, inspired you to look to something more that could be the foundation of the inner you that you could not control. I'm going to repeat that. You came to understand that there had to be something else at your foundation to control the you that you couldn't control. This was the missing piece. Looking for that larger energy that would be the foundational energy of yourself, the inner you. You were smart enough to know that you could handle all of the situations of your life. But you were also smart enough to know that you couldn't handle yourself. There was something more that was needed for the foundation of the center of your life. You clearly saw that you could handle the stuff of your life, but you also clearly saw that, you couldn't handle yourself. This admission that you could not handle yourself became the basis of your surrender point. This admission that you couldn't handle yourself became the basis of your surrender point. You knew that the little you, your spiritual ego, needed something more. And finally, you accepted the fact that you needed to acknowledge and then surrender to that higher power, which provided the power, the principles, and the values which were guiding your life. This surrendering to your source power was a series of starts and stops. You realized that you needed to surrender, but you still wanted to be in control. This is a problem. You started and stopped innumerable times until the solution finally became clear. This is how the solution occurred. The solution occurred primarily through your spiritual practices, and especially through meditation. As you began to meditate more and more on your own, and especially more frequently with others, you began to acknowledge the source's power within you. There was something crystal clear that an energy within you was very apparent. This acknowledgement of the source's power within you was more than just an idea in your mind. It grew more and more into a feeling, an experience within your inner you, within the self that previously still wanted to be in control. But after a while, and only after many soul experiences and meditation, you realized, you came to the conclusion that the source's presence within you was you. You finally came to realize that the source's presence within you was you. I'll say it again. After many experiences doing the work, you came to realize that the source's presence within you was you. You might be asking yourself, what happened? Here's the answer. You just surrendered to yourself. You just surrendered to your true self. You have given up trying to control your little soul self, and now you have surrendered to your true God self, the God spirit within you. This surrender, or if you want to call it this reconnection, which is fine, with the God self, has proved quite exciting for you. Now you are operating from a whole new power source, the God spirit within you. And now you have that confidence, that certainty of a set of spiritual principles and values to guide you, instead of trying to figure it out in your mind with your little limited human intelligence. And of course, you are anxious to try this new power source with its set of principles and values. And to your surprise, of course, they worked every time. They worked every time. But you had an even bigger surprise in store for you. The bigger surprise The biggest surprise was that you were now really in control of yourself. You had not lost control, that you have now moved to the master control. You've moved to the master control, allowing the God self to become yourself, which was always the way it was meant to be. You had finally mastered yourself. This view of yourself as the God self is the ultimate seeing of what is. You have to come to this conclusion. You got to get out of that personality self. You got to move into seeing yourself as the God self. And it provides the most stable set of principles and values that are universally applicable in all situations. So powerful to be able to know that you have within yourself principles and values for all of your life situations. It recalls to mind the wonderful teaching of A Course in Miracles. Seek not to change the world, but rather seek to change how you see the world. You've learned to do this. You've learned to see the world differently. You've learned to see it differently because you have surrendered to the vision point of your life, the God Spirit within you, your true self. Quite an achievement. That there's more. You have given up control to find your true self. The even bigger surprise is that you are experiencing now an expansion of your spiritual awareness. Your surrender point has now become your expansion point. As you release the need to be in your limited self's control, you begin to see your surrendering as a launching point to greater growth. This has been the exciting movement in our lives, launching into further growth. As you became a part of something bigger, of ushering in the kingdom of God, you became bigger. You became kinder and nicer and more loving and smarter and wiser. And in greater control than you ever had when you were trying to control everything. You have surrendered. Three things now become important in your expansion. See if they are not true. The first one, please realize the importance of your 7 daily practices that we espouse in Now Creations, for they are the foundational expressions of your daily living. Don't fool yourself. Don't dupe yourself anymore into resorting to your own limited control mechanisms. Stop it. Rather, ground yourself in your daily 7 spiritual practices to expand your sense of self. Secondly, the goal of Now Creations is to bring you and me to our surrender points or to your connection points. Now Creations will never tell you what to believe, but we will tell you where to look inside, excuse me, to look inside to your soul center and connect with your God spirit. You got to know where to look so that you might find. Need to know where to knock so that the door can open. And third and lastly, that you surrender. Get rid of that limited little self and expand it into your God self. As you take the time to daily refresh yourself in daily meditation, you're setting the tone for the rest of your life, not just here in body, but beyond. You're expanding into a greater fullness. Why? Why try to keep on trying to control the senseless, the uncontrollable, when you can open up to the beauty of the power of the God Spirit within you? Wake up. Wake up to yourself. This is what the Buddha did. He awakened into his expanded self because he had surrendered to his true self. In conclusion, today's teaching is a monumental teaching. Not trying to control what is beyond your control, and realize that in the process, you are surrendering to your God self, is just among the most important things to know in life. What a treasure today's teaching is. Do not neglect it, and certainly do not squander it. Learn from it. Heed it. It's the conditioning that is unconditional. It's the continuing truth that will set us free to be blessings to each other and to all of life. Let me now take you into meditation, and what a joy it is to do so. What a joy it is to do so. Nice, easy breathing. Nice, easy breath. We've all tried it. We've all tried it. We've all tried to be in control of things. We've tried to control people. We've tried to control situations. We've tried it in every way, shape, or form, and just realized that it's the proverbial roller coaster. Some days you do, some days you don't, and in the end, you fail. You're trying to control life, which is uncontrollable, especially when you're dealing with others. Have you learned that lesson yet? And then you finally came to realize that not only could you not control others or life situations, but you also realized that you couldn't control yourself. There was just something within you that was not in control. Oh, you substituted trying to control others in life situations. They were substitutions for knowing that you couldn't control yourself. There was something missing in you. You know that there was something missing in you. And as you developed your spirituality, it was very comforting to know that you had principles and values that were very, very helpful. They could solve pretty much any situation. But you also realized that something else was missing. You still wanted to be in control. Crazy, isn't it? You knew you were out of control, but you still wanted to be in control. That freedom within you. And you plodded along, dealing much more effectively with the outside of you until you eventually made the decision to start looking within yourself. Your life was better, but you weren't. Your life was better. You were smart, wise, kind, happier. Things were good. that you want. And you knew that. And as crazy as it sounds, the better your external life was, the larger the gap you noticed internally. You just couldn't give it up. Until you did. Or have you? Or have you? If you're thinking about it, you haven't. Now don't worry about it. You just have some more work to do. This is a good opportunity today to see where you need to go, to surrender into the higher power. If you're thinking about it, then you haven't surrendered. On the other hand, if you're feeling pretty good about it, if there's just that calmness within you, that smile within your heart, you probably have. Now, isn't it exciting? Isn't it exciting to know that there's more to know? Whether you've surrendered or not, there is more to know. There's expansion, there's movement. We are moving forward. We are moving forward. Buck up. Come on, let's go. We're moving forward. Allow the God Spirit within you to move you forward. Expand from within. And would you just notice how good you feel when you just said to yourself, I will expand from within? Just notice how good you feel. Isn't that evidence, proof that you're ready to move forward? Okay, let's get it together. Let's move it forward. We're ready to do so. Open yourself up to that wonderful presence at the very core of your being. Allow it to guide you. You are an eternal soul spirit, a brilliant manifestation of the divine itself. And with that, let me invite you back into your breath, sense of happiness, contentedness. Why not? You've surrendered into yourself. Pretty smart. And gently breathing your eyes open, happy to do so. I am an eternal being of light and love. Thus, only good can come to me, and only good can come from me. And we are eternal beings of light and love. Thus, only good can come to us, and only good can come from us. Namaste.